God's grace, God's mercy, God's peace are yours through faith in Christ Jesus, brothers and sisters. Word of God that we consider again, Jesus' words of the gospel lesson. We're in the upper room again Maundy, Thursday, when he says this to his disciples. I have much more to say to you, more than you can now bear. But when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all the truth. He'll not speak on his own. He'll speak only what he hears, and he will tell you what is yet to come. He will glorify me, because it is from me that he will receive what he will make known to you. All that belongs to the Father is mine. That is why I said the Spirit will receive from me what he will make known to you. Truth. It's a simple enough concept. I think we all can appreciate what that word represents and the value of it in our lives. This is, that isn't. It's simple. You did or you didn't. It's verifiable. If you read the history of human philosophy from around the world, whatever culture that philosophies have been recorded, and you can read all the way back 800 years before Jesus, they've been talking about and thinking about what truth is and how you might determine if something is actually true or not. And it's fascinating to read if you're into reading philosophy, and they sound really smart when they talk. But at the end of the day, what you realize is that even the smart people don't really know how to determine what truth is, and therefore they can't really tell you what is true definitively or not. It's not so simple to define truth or to give to me a very succinct way of determining what truth is. Truth. It's actually a great argument for the existence of a higher intellect, of an intelligent being above us, because if all of human history has been running around trying to determine truth, and yet we can't determine what is true or even how to determine what is true, then that idea of truth must have been put upon us from a higher being, because we would have never come up with the concept if left of our own devices. You see, truth and God are inexorably linked. That much, well, it's true. Jesus is with his disciples in the upper room on Maundy, Thursday. And in John's very long discourse of red letters, Jesus' words of comfort and of teaching of his disciples before his pending departure, you see that Jesus is trying to add some clarity to their confusion. And in spite of his best efforts, I would say that the one word that describes the atmosphere in that room is confusion on the part of the disciples. They began that evening with Jesus doing an unthinkable act, the act of a slave, getting on his hands and knees and washing the feet of his disciples. Read that account again. Peter was more than a bit confused about the whole thing. Jesus tried to comfort his disciples by saying that he's going to depart, and he's going to depart and prepare a place for his disciples and come back and take them with him. And he closed that little section by saying, you know the way to the place where I'm going. Well, Thomas was more than a bit confused about that whole thing. I don't even know where you're going. How in the world are we ever going to know the way? Last week, we looked at a question that Judas had posed when Jesus said, I'm going to reveal myself to you, but not to the world. Well, Judas was confused about that whole thing. Why in the world wouldn't you reveal yourself to the world? And in a little while, just past this, all of the disciples were going to be confused when Jesus said, in a little while you will not see me anymore, but then after a little while you will see me again. And they were talking amongst themselves, what in the world does this mean? confusion. In spite of Jesus' efforts to comfort them, they were confused. So Jesus, in his compassion, makes them a promise. He promises to send them a gift, and that's the beginning of the section we're looking at this morning, the first verse and a half. Jesus says, I have much more to say to you, more than you can now bear. But when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all the truth. Jesus recognizes that in the middle of this situation, they were in a position where they just weren't going to get it, and there was too much going on for them. And so he says, I'm not going to burden you anymore, but I will give you a gift. I'll give you a guide. You know the value of a guide, don't you? In my youth, my family took 2 trips to the Lake of the Woods in Canada. Totem Lodge, I have no idea where it is other than it was about 100 miles or so across the border. We were on the Lake of the Woods, and it's an unbelievable lake, not just in terms of how much square mileage that it actually covers. It's not really the water, it's the islands. There's so many islands there, you almost lose track of them. You can't really count them. And what that meant, even for the professional guides at the resort that we were at, was that they only went out about a mile, they said. Because after about a mile, you're into islands where even the guides would get lost. Except for one guy. That was the guide we were lucky enough to have. His name was Billy. He was a Native American who had grown up in the area, grown up on the lake. He knew the sights, he knew the smells and the sounds of that lake. Well, Billy didn't have the 1 mile limit. He could go wherever he went, and that pays off, right? That meant that we were guided into waters that none of the other guides would go into, and that meant that we caught our daily limit of walleyes twice every day, once for the shore lunch, once for the cooler on the ride home. The value of a guide into uncharted and unknown territories, I think, is obvious for us. And that's exactly what Jesus promised his disciples. The Spirit who would guide them into all the truth. Would guide them into areas that this world does not know and cannot know. Only God knows. What a value that is for us as believers in the middle of the world that we live in. To have a guide through all the confusion, through all of the evil, through all of the things that just don't make sense no matter how much we think about and ponder and want to make sense out of it. We have a guide who guides us into all the truth about all things. What value there is. And shame on us when we don't pick up the compass. When the scriptures are neglected, when we're scratching our head, when we're frustrated with all that's going on, and we don't pick up the waters of truth so that the Spirit might guide us here, shame on us who've been given this great gift from Christ himself. The great thing about the truth that God gives to us, apart from all the truth that mankind searches for, is the source of the truth that we're guided into. And Jesus talks about that. He says the Spirit will not speak on his own. He'll speak only what he hears, and he'll tell you what's yet to come. He'll glorify me, because it is from me that he will receive what he will make known to you. All that belongs to the Father is mine. That is why I said the Spirit will receive from me what he will make known to you. Truth. What determines it? God does. The truth that God the Father has made known to this world in the sending of his Son into this world. Truth. The truth of God's activity amongst human beings, no matter where it is, that it is through the guide of truth as the Holy Spirit works, as the scriptures are read and studied and devoured. Truth. That's where it is, that's where we'll find it, and that's where we get the benefit of it, because it's God's way, and he's the only one who's true. You see, God isn't in the dirt in the Middle East on an archaeological dig looking for truth in the earth. He made the earth. God isn't in some classroom with chalk flying all over the place doing mathematical computations. God is the one who is more orderly than even math is. He's not in some lab in a white coat with goggles down and explosions going off in his face. God knows all that stuff already. God is true. No matter what we think of it. And this is a good time to just think about our God. Father, Son, Spirit. One God. That makes no sense to me. And if it makes sense to you, maybe we should call a doctor. But it's true. The truth of an unthinkable God, three persons in one, all in for our blessing. The Lord who blesses and keeps us, who makes his face to shine on us, who gives us favor and peace. That's our God. The value of truth is evident. It's not just a human invention. In fact, the scriptures are laid through with it. I think of Solomon, how he opens Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. What does that imply? Without the fear of the Lord, without respect and love for the Lord and knowledge of who the Lord is, the saving God, you're going to be without truth no matter how hard you try. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of it. You don't start, you never get to the end. Solomon doubles down on that, and he makes an inference on that at the end of Ecclesiastes, when his closing encouragement contains a warning. It talks about the voice of the shepherd and the sayings of the shepherd, scriptures. And then he says, be leery, be very, very leery of anything else other than that. Because that's truth. Nothing else. Jesus lays it bare here. God is the source of truth. He's the guide into truth. And he wants nothing more than you to know and to treasure the truth. I'll give you one piece of truth that this world will never come by except if we share it with them. I think the biggest issue that the human race has is that they've bought a tremendous lie. They think it's true, and it seems reasonable. As you look around and you say, well, there's a small segment of society that is causing an overly disproportional amount of all the problems in the world. And so most of society is good, and there's only a few that are not good. In fact, there's probably at least a little good in everyone. That's generally understood truth in our human domain. But it's a lie. And maybe it's a lie you've even bought into. As you've held your newborn baby or your newborn grandbaby, and you've looked at it and said, what a beautiful, perfect little baby. So innocent, so wonderful. and that's a lie. God and only God can reveal you to the truth of that little child. God says, that's my enemy. That little child, as sweet as you think it is hostile to me, its creator. With every ounce of its energy and its will, it fights against me. It's condemnable and evil to its core, just like all of you and me. That's truth. The Spirit has guided us into that truth as he's revealed it in the Scriptures, so that he might reveal a greater truth. God, in love for his enemies, has given his Son. And in the life and the death and the resurrection of his Son, he's saved wicked, evil sinners. And as the Spirit, through baptism and through the Word, guides people into the truth so that they believe the truth, God himself saves people. That's true. That's the only truth worth knowing. It's the only truth worth sharing. And God himself, as unthinkable as he is, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, use this truth to do unthinkable things in your life and amongst all of us, brothers and sisters. Amen. Now may the peace of God that far transcends all human understanding keep your hearts and your minds through faith in Christ Jesus. Amen. Please stand as we confess our faith in the triune God. We'll use the words of the Apostles' Creed.